Okay, this podcast is going to cover the River Valley civilizations aspect of Unit 1. The time frame, generally speaking, is about 3500 BCE to 1200 BCE. The last screencast discussed the emergence of agriculturally based communities, the first of those kind that replaced previous hunter-gatherer communities before it. These communities will develop based on agriculture into more complex sedentary or stationary civilizations. Farming is a much more socially demanding activity than hunting and gathering, and particularly because of the big irrigation projects. That's why these civilizations tend to form around rivers. They need to divert the water from the river to their fields, and this requires organization. It requires regulation, and this leads to the progression of society. These tend to develop in river valleys like the Indus, the Nile, and then between the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia. We refer to these sort of first civilizations as cultural hearths, where they begin and then spread out. Now, another view of why civilization begins at this time is not necessarily just because people have to work together to build irrigation. Um, Another way to look at it is that the surplus of food leads to more population, which means there's more competition amongst people. We talked about the emergence of wealth and all those things. And whenever you have competition, you always get more innovation. Innovation is what some people believe was driving, the development of cities and architecture and more sophisticated governments. When we look at these early civilizations from this unit, what we want to do is think about the characteristics that make them civilized, and what qualifies a civilization as civilization, and some of the general things that your textbook talks about. First one being they have reliable surpluses. That if something bad happens with the weather, a drought or something, that they have food to rely on, and they don't crumble. That as they grow and become more sophisticated, they create complex labor systems that make them more efficient. It's the specialization of labor. People who have specific jobs and use their talent to the best of their ability. We also want to see if they're venturing out in search of trading with other civilizations. We definitely see this during this time period. Another characteristic is the emergence of cities. As people accumulate wealth, they want to protect that wealth, and one of the best ways to do it is get behind a big wall so that people from the outside do not invade and take your stuff. Another thing is the emergence of some form of government. We see this whether it's Hammurabi's Code, some of the dynastic cycles of the Mandate of Heaven in China, but these are all ways of validating the authority of whoever is ruling. Next, we see writing emerge, things like the Epic of Gilgamesh. You see the Hebrew scriptures emerge out of this time period that give us things like the Ten Commandments. You get the Book of the Dead, Songs of the Dead, and other writings from this time, hieroglyphics, cuneiform. And next, we see social distinctions, and in that you can also throw gender distinctions as well. This is a time period that sees big change, and what we want to do is see how all those things that I just went over, all of this stuff, how does that fit into each of the specific civilizations from this unit? Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, Indus Valley, Olmec, and Chavin. What was making it? What examples of writing do we have from the Indus Valley or from China or Egypt? What examples of social inequality or social structures do we have from these places? A good way to look at it is to go back to your groups or theme. An easy one to remember is SPICE, which stands for social, political, interaction with the environment, culture or religion, and economics. These are all good ways to break down each of these civilizations. And this is kind of what you did in your theme chart. So I would review those and know kind of the general information for each of these civilizations. The last thing that you want to prepare yourself for is to compare and contrast. Sorry about the typo there. But when you can compare and contrast, you can look at Mesopotamia versus Egypt, for example. And I have just done one. I can't do all of them. This would be an hour-long screencast. You can see that they're both river valley civilizations that probably do a lot of agriculture, but the Nile is a predictable flooding river, and the Tigris and Euphrates aren't. So this has implications that make life in each place different. And you can read through and kind of see how they're different. But that's the mindset that you want to have as you go into looking at the significance and the changes that occur as these river valley civilizations develop. All right. Thanks.